Ever wondered what would happen if F1 went totally crazy? Well, the 2024 season brought more fun than anyone could have imagined. This year had it all: emotional outbursts, heart-stopping rivalries, and unpredictable events that left you asking only one question: what the hell is going on here? Are you ready to experience this madness once again? Let's dive into the full story of F1 2024. The season starts in Bahrain, and everyone has one question on their minds: can someone finally challenge Max Verstappen? Because throughout the 2023 season, Max had no challenge at all. Hold on for a moment and think about Verstappen. No, seriously, the champ shows up to the 2024 season like he's playing F1 on easy mode. The guy's not even pretending it's hard anymore. It seems for many people that he is a virtual sim racer full-time and doing F1 as a side hustle.
This happens to me now that I get kicked off the game while doing this race, so it's also the last time I'm ever participating.
So, as the season began in Bahrain, everyone's fears seemed to come true, as Max dominated the field. He finishes way ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. Then he does it again in Saudi Arabia. We're all thinking, great, another boring season of Max winning everything. But just when we're about to switch channels, something wild happens in Australia. It's like we've stepped into some crazy parallel universe. Enter Carlos Sainz, who just had surgery for appendicitis. The guy shows up 2 weeks later and goes, "Watch this, I'm gonna win." On lap 2, he overtakes Max for the lead and holds it. Did Sainz just beat Max Verstappen? It seems so, but the replay tells a different story. Max made a mistake before the DRS zone, giving Sainz an easy overtake. Verstappen sticks to his tail, but 2 laps later, everything changes. Smoke rises from the Red Bull. Brake failure. Max is out of the race. I mean, if I had my appendix out, I'd be using it as an excuse to avoid work for a month. But Carlos, he's out here winning races. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering who replaced Sainz at the time, Oliver Burman. And he made a great debut and was only 0.4 to 0.5 seconds behind Leclerc when you compare the different segments. There are already rumors that he will start for Haas in 2025. Max is trying to act cool about it, but you can tell he's shaken up. But there's a catch. Not only Max had problems, but the Red Bull team did too. Christian Horner, the team boss, was caught in a scandal. He was sending naked photos of himself to a female employee, and it seems he was about to get kicked off the team. After 3 races, we suddenly realized that this season could be really exciting, as if Formula One decided to make 2024 a year in which nothing makes sense, leaving us all wondering what will happen next. So, just as soon as people started asking questions about can someone dethrone Verstappen, he went on doing Max things, and answers in a confident language that only he speaks, winning races mercilessly. Japan,
Max Verstappen returns to victory,
as well as China go to Max, and the first voices are getting louder again, that it will probably be the same as 2023. But do not hurry to think that this is the end, because in the next race, we're heading to Miami. Land of beaches, palm trees, and one young fella is especially hungry for his first race win, Lando Norris. He was the only guy who seemed to be able to challenge Verstappen, and as the year has gone on, McLaren kept improving their car race after race. We've all been waiting for years for this beast to get loose, but Mad Max keeps them all in check. Only this time, something is different. McLaren had been getting better before Miami. Lando qualified P5, which was pretty good considering their earlier troubles, but no one saw what was coming. The race starts and Max is out front doing his thing. Then BAM! This happens. Suddenly, the Red Bull doesn't look so unbeatable. Throw in a safety car after Sargent and Magnussen bump into each other, and everything's up for grabs. Lando pits, comes out in the lead, and we're all wondering if we're dreaming. Is this real? Norris leading a Grand Prix in a McLaren? The laps feel like they're taking forever, but Lando's actually faster than Max. He's lapping quicker on old tires than Max on new ones. It's like he's playing a video game with cheats on. The McLaren team is probably freaking out, begging Lando not to mess up. But he stays cool, driving like a pro. And then he does it! Lando Norris wins his first Grand Prix. Cue the British anthem and break out the champagne. I bet they heard the cheers back in McLaren's hometown. After the race, McLaren's boss Andrea Stella was all smiles, talking about strategy and stuff. But come on, they just did something amazing. With this victory, we have the first clear rival to Max Verstappen for this year, Lando Norris. If you think that's wild, just wait. This season has only just begun. Welcome to Monaco, the most glamorous race on the F1 calendar. Yachts, parties, high society, and a lot of fun, but for Charles Leclerc. On the one hand, a close connection, his hometown, to which he feels drawn. And on the other hand, he has horrible memories from the previous races here.
Stay out, stay out.
Fuck! Fuck! Why? What I'm doing?
Tire position.
Miles out. Is Leclerc actually going to go for it here? And oh, he can't stop!
To grow up in Monaco and dream of. Oh no! I say that!
This track seems to be doomed for Charles, but we fans, and especially Charles himself, cannot accept that. Would the knot finally burst this year? We are about to find out. Qualifying day rolls around, and guess what? Charles put his Ferrari on pole again. We've seen this before, and it usually ends with Charles watching from the pit wall while everyone else races. But this time feels different. Race day arrives, and the tension in Monaco is thick. Charles lines up on pole, and we're all waiting for something to go wrong. The lights go out. Charles gets a perfect start, and he's leading into the first corner. But it looks like things are going as usual for Ferrari. A red flag. Panic spreads through the Italian racing team. Sainz seems to have problems as he falls back down the order. But something much scarier happened at the back of the field. Perez had a huge crash.
And then the second one has nowhere to go.
Thankfully, everyone is okay. This reminds him once again how quickly it can be over in Monaco. The pressure is rising. Luckily for Sainz, the race start order was reinstated, and he was starting third again. The race gets restarted. We're all thinking, when is it gonna go south? But the laps tick down, and Charles is smooth as butter. He's driving like it's a Sunday cruise, round after round, pure perfection. Final lap, and you could hear a pin drop in Monaco. Charles is nearing the finish line, and then he's done it!
Charles Leclerc vince il Gran Premio di Monaco per la prima volta in carriera!
Charles crosses the line 7.1 seconds ahead of second place. That's enough time to make a quick espresso and still win. After the race, Charles is so pumped he jumps into the harbor. I guess when you break a curse, you can party however you want. It's a moment the whole F1 world can enjoy. Even other teams' fans are happy for Charles. But while Leclerc was breaking his curse, other curses were just starting. In F1 2024, one driver's joy usually meant a whole lot of drama for another. We are going to the Canadian Grand Prix, just as the rivalry between Lando and Verstappen is heating up. Picture this, Lando Norris, our boy wonder, is out there leading the pack. He's got a gap so big you could fit a whole other race in it. 2 seconds per lap, folks. 2. Seconds. That's like forever in F1 time. But then, because the F1 gods have a twisted sense of humor, Logan Sargent decides to introduce his car to the wall. Boom! Safety car time, baby! And this is where things get spicy. Now, you'd think the smart move would be to bring Lando in for some fresh rubber, right? I mean, that's like racing 101. But apparently, the McLaren pit wall was too busy arguing over whether pineapple belongs on pizza or something because they completely dropped the ball.
In goes Verstappen, in goes Russell. No, Norris stays out.
They keep Lando out there on his old worn-out tires. It's like sending him into a gunfight armed with a wet noodle. Meanwhile, every other team makes the obvious decision and pits. And just like that, Lando's massive lead evaporates faster than my motivation to go to the gym. This seems to be the right decision, as Lando creates a nice gap, and on lap 47, he decides to pit. The Red Bull comes charging from behind. Lando's trying everything to get the car back to speed. The tires have not yet warmed up, and that's all Verstappen needs to seize the lead. In the end, Norris finished second. Again. The win slipped away. Verstappen cruises to victory and the gap widens. 63 points. A gut punch for Lando. After the race, Lando didn't mince words. My team royally screwed up and I'm trying really hard not to lose my cool on international TV. Fast forward to the Austrian Grand Prix. Norris is still smarting from Canada and he's got something to prove. He's driving like a man possessed, pushing his McLaren to the limit. And who does he find himself battling with? None other than the reigning champ Verstappen. Now, Max and Lando used to be buddies, but on that day in Austria, you'd think they were mortal enemies. They're wheel to wheel, neither giving an inch. And then it happens.
And game on at the front of the field. Game on once again. This time it's the outside line. Oh, they make contact. He's got a puncture. He's damaged his front wing.
Collision. Sparks fly, and suddenly we've got more drama than a soap opera. Lando's race is over. Max limps back to the pits, and the stewards are about to earn their paychecks trying to figure out who's to blame. This moment right here. This is where the Norris-Verstappen rivalry really kicks off, which was brewing throughout the season. But now, we're talking Senna-Prost, Hamilton-Rosberg levels of rivalry. The kind of rivalry that makes F1 fans grab the popcorn and settle in for a long, drama-filled season. And in the middle of the season, we had Silverstone, which has produced a few of the greatest races in the past, and 2024 was no different. Mercedes was firmly in control in the opening stages, as Russell led teammate Lewis Hamilton. Now, one of the biggest stories coming into 2024 was the fact that this was going to be Lewis Hamilton's last season for Mercedes, as he would leave to join Ferrari the next year. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time F1 world champion, one of the greatest racers of all time, would be ending his long-storied partnership with Mercedes. And it made sense that his home country would be the place for one of his masterpieces. The beautiful British home weather decided to introduce itself. Because as the rain began to tip down, Hamilton got more and more confidence. And on the 18th lap,
The lead of the British Grand Prix from his teammate.
Meanwhile, while the rest of the field stayed out for several laps on dry tires, McLaren were actually the smart ones with their team strategy, and they were able to fire up their cars. And with brilliant driving of both pilots, they were ahead of the Mercedes pair. To add further insult to injury, George Russell was told to retire due to car failure. The man who started from pole position couldn't even finish the race. It was now only Lewis out there for Mercedes. As Norris seemed comfortable in his lead, the sun began to shine on the track. McLaren was immediately called to the pits for dry tires, but it was already too late. Hamilton and Mercedes, on the other hand, had entered the pits a lap earlier and were on soft tires, as McLaren was leaving the pits.
He's got there.
There's Hamilton. Hamilton comes out in front of Lando Norris.
This was the first time in over 2 years that Lewis Hamilton won a Grand Prix, a sight we had seen so often in F1 history but were missing dearly. This was the first time in over 2 years that Lewis Hamilton won a Grand Prix, and it couldn't have happened anywhere else but Silverstone, in front of his home crowd, during his farewell season with Mercedes. Hamilton more than felt the weight of the moment as he celebrated with his father. So here we are in Hungary, and McLaren is going to surprise us. Throughout the season, we've seen McLaren improve their cars, but the Hungarian Grand Prix was the first time we saw the team take on Red Bull. So the dominance began in the first segment. But that was not Lando Norris, but the rookie sensation Oscar Piastri. The Australian qualified in P2 and got a clean start, and it put him in front of everybody, including his teammate. He's out there living his best life, probably daydreaming about spraying champagne on the podium, right? So while Piastri is in the lead, McLaren gets the genius idea of stopping any potential undercuts from the rivals and letting Piastri run ahead. So they told Norris to pit first, which ended up allowing Norris to undercut Piastri and regain the lead. The team quickly realizes they've messed up and tries to swap the drivers back. Now it's total chaos. Lando's not happy about it, and who can blame him? Especially when he's in the midst of a title race with Verstappen. After endless discussions, Norris finally gave the race back to Piastri, and McLaren finished a 1-2 for the first time in 14 years. While everyone was supposed to be celebrating this momentous achievement, the post-race brought only passive-aggressive heat. After the race, team boss Andrea Stella is talking about learning from this and communicating better. No kidding, Andrea. Maybe start with not messing with your drivers for no reason. And what about those famous papaya rules McLaren's always on about? You know, the ones about clean racing. They might want to add a new one. Don't confuse your drivers in the middle of a race.
You got fast. You know, you had a fast car 7 years ago. 7 years ago? Yeah, well, you had it. You had a quick car. You made the most of it, now it's us. I wasn't complaining, I was just complimenting your car.
So there you have it, McLaren's big strategy disaster of 2024. A race that started with promise and ended up as a total drama fest. At least it gave us something to talk about, right? Finally, we've reached the most intense races of the season: Monza, Baku, and Singapore. The standout star of these rounds was Oscar Piastri. He proved he wasn't just another secondary driver. At the start of Monza, he proved to Lando that he was not going to be his assistant. But while Piastri made his mark, Monza belonged to Charles Leclerc. A one-stop strategy secured him a crucial victory for Ferrari, igniting celebrations with a Tifosi.
Grazie.
As always though, Ferrari's momentum was short-lived. During the Baku weekend, Piastri was obsessed from the start. He lined up behind Charles Leclerc, practically glued to the Ferrari's gearbox as if his life depended on it. On lap 20, he made his move.
Feeling on the brakes, it's a dive bomb move!
It looked like both of them were heading for disaster, but Oscar pulled ahead. Just when you thought this race couldn't get any crazier, Baku did what Baku does best. It turned into complete chaos. Behind Piastri, all hell broke loose. Red Bull versus Ferrari. But this time, it wasn't Max, it was Perez. He was stuck in third behind Leclerc. But in the closing stages of the race, a hot battle unfolded. Perez was trying everything he could to get P2, but Leclerc heroically defended. With 2 laps to go, Sergio lost out to Carlos.
Perez has got them laid on the brakes to give it up!
And then something unimaginable happened.
into the wall at high speed. Sainz and Perez.
A dangerous misunderstanding at 200 miles per hour. What happened next? The virtual safety car was deployed, neutralizing the race. And just like that, it was over. For Perez, this wasn't just one bad race. It was the story of his entire season. He had been in free fall for months. His pace was so weak that he couldn't even beat Max, who had a 10-second penalty in Austria. Baku was supposed to be his chance to prove that Checo still had it. Instead, he crashed into a wall and helped McLaren. After Piastri's victory and Norris's P4 finish, McLaren took the lead in the Constructors' Championship, chasing their first title since 1998. But not everyone believed that this success was purely down to driver talent. A single topic dominated the paddock: the rear wing. The replays didn't lie. McLaren's wing visibly flexed at high speeds, folding to reduce aerodynamic drag, almost like a secret mini DRS. Was it legal? Was it fair? Depends on who you ask. Red Bull was furious. Ferrari demanded answers. The FIA had a new headache, but they didn't seem too bothered because what they had planned next was absolutely insane. No swearing in press conferences. In a sport where drivers risk their lives every weekend, the FIA's top concern is keeping things PG. It's like they're trying to turn F1 into a kiddie show. You'd think the drivers would embrace this, right? Nope. They weren't thrilled about being treated like kids. Max Verstappen, ever the rebel, protested by saying nothing at all during press conferences. Just, "I'll find out tomorrow."
I will find out tomorrow.
Or no comment.
No comment.
It was like watching the world's most awkward game of charades. When asked about his silence, Max let loose with some colorful language, earning himself community service.
It happens that you use a swear word, and I think we shouldn't take it so serious, you know?
Soon, other drivers joined in, turning press conferences into silent standoffs. FIA boss Mohammed Ben Sulayem.
Japan, you said was controversial. No. The FIA was blamed for the points, but it was not the FIA which made the rules.
Tried to justify the rule, saying, "We're not rappers, you know," and asking what parents would say if their kids heard bad language during a race. Maybe, "Wow, that driver almost died, but at least he didn't swear." In the end, the drivers showed that silence can speak volumes, making the FIA's plan backfire spectacularly. So there you have it, the great F1 swear jar mess of 2024. Drivers win, FIA loses. But if you think this was the only drama off the track, boy do I have news for you. So far, so good. Let's talk about Singapore. You know, that hot, humid place where Daniel Riccardo just reminded us why we love him so much. Danny Ric's been struggling lately, bouncing between teams and making people wonder about his F1 future. But in true Daniel fashion, he gave us something to remember at the Singapore Grand Prix. He really raced like hell, turning back the clock, finishing with the fastest lap, preventing Norris, who won the race, from taking the Triple Crown.
And your old pal Daniel picked up a fastest lap at the end as well, man.
Thank you, Daniel.
He finished the race, which might not sound like much, but hey, sometimes that's all you need to do. Then something weird happened. Instead of jumping out of his car right away, Daniel just sat there for ages. The camera zoomed in, and we could see it all over his face. This wasn't just a tired driver. This was a guy having a moment.
I got very, very used to for many years. And yeah, just wanted to savor the moment.
So cheers to you, Daniel. Thanks for showing us it's okay to have feelings, even when you're supposed to be this tough racing driver. After Singapore, in the season final races, the title race was heating up. And after the United States, it was still anyone's game. So, coming into the Mexico City Grand Prix, everything was at stake. Carlos Sainz took pole position for the race, but he lost it to second place Verstappen. However, not for long. With a brilliant move, Carlos Sainz retook the lead.
Carlos Sainz!
Meanwhile, Norris and Verstappen were at it again, each one of them not giving an inch and trying to outmaneuver the other for P2. First, Norris attempted a brave, overambitious maneuver, which Verstappen quickly shut down, forcing him wide. But it wasn't over. 2 corners later, in a desperate attempt to not let raging Norris pass, Max and Lando both went off the track. Leclerc took advantage of the brawl and took P2. Verstappen was later given 2 separate 10-second penalties for forcing Norris off track and gaining an advantage. Elsewhere, Norris was hot on Leclerc's heels. Suddenly, the Ferrari lost control and almost crashed into the wall. Norris took advantage of the chaos and went through. As Carlos Sainz took the comfortable victory, Norris took his chance and finished, denying Ferrari the 1-2, resulting in a 10-point swing in the title race as Max finished 6th. This race would be a bittersweet moment for Sainz, who would win his last race for Ferrari, before moving to Williams next season. So Lando's day was a roller coaster in Mexico, but let me tell you about Max Verstappen's Brazilian adventure. This was the climax of the season, as due to the drama in qualifying, Norris was now in pole position. After dominating in the early rounds of the season, Verstappen had failed to secure P1 since the Spanish Grand Prix, which, if you're counting, is 10 races in a row. If there was one place Norris could get to cut Max's lead down, it would be this place in Sao Paulo in the rain. Picture this, it's pouring rain, the track's slicker than a greased pig, and Max is starting in 17th place. Most drivers would be praying for a miracle, but Max, he was about to give us a masterclass that would make even the racing gods do a double take. The race starts and it's wetter than an otter's pocket out there. I mean, seriously, you could probably see Noah building an ark in the parking lot. But Max, he's in his element. He's carving through the field like a hot knife through butter. It's like he's got cheat codes or something, because in just 5 laps, he goes from P17 to P10. I swear, if you blinked, you'd miss him overtaking half the grid. Now, let me tell you, watching Max in these conditions is like watching a ballet dancer in a mosh pit. He's graceful, he's precise, and he's making everyone else look like they're driving with blindfolds on. Midway through the race, he's already in podium positions. At this point, I'm pretty sure the other drivers are checking their mirrors more than the track ahead. As we get to the final laps, Max is hunting down the leader. Now normally, I'd say there's no way he could pull this off, but this is Verstappen we're talking about. The guy could probably win a race driving a shopping cart, and with the help of a safety car and the perfect strategy choices from Red Bull, already by lap 33, Max Verstappen moves into the lead of the race. And then, just like that, Max wins. From P17 in the rain. It's like he's playing F1 23 on easy mode, while everyone else is stuck on expert. He doesn't just win, he dominates. He finishes a whopping 20 seconds ahead of the second-placed Esteban Ocon.
Ah, yes! Simply lovely.
After the race, Max was cool as a cucumber. He's all like, of course it sometimes works for you and sometimes it works against you. This time, it was working for us.
It's not talent or, it's just luck.
For Norris, it was a day to forget. He ended the race in P6. With 3 races to go, the chances for Lando to win the championship were miserable, although not mathematically impossible. All Verstappen needed was to finish ahead of Norris in the next race. And so he did. In the Las Vegas Grand Prix, Max would claim his 4th World Championship after finishing ahead of Lando in 5th to claim the title. As the Driver Championship was over, the Constructors' Cup was still on. Alright, so we've made it to Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season, and it's a big one. McLaren and Ferrari are fighting for the Constructors' Championship. Who would have thought we'd be here at the start of the season? In qualifying, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri took the front row. But as soon as the race started, things got very messy. Only Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton stayed in the game,
We are P8.
taking up positions lap after lap. Meanwhile, Norris flew forward as if his car was on fire. Each lap seemed like an eternity as Ferrari tried its best to catch up. But this race was more like a cat and mouse game. And here comes the last lap. Lando Norris crosses the finish line first. McLaren's done it! They win the Constructors' Championship. The team's garage explodes with emotion. Lando is so excited he can barely speak. This is how the McLaren miracle in Abu Dhabi happened. They showed up, raced hard, and won their first Constructors' Championship since 1998. That was the end of one of the most dramatic seasons in Formula One history. And once again, Ferrari was left one step behind.